Never Stop Learning, week 189. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the selection tools in Adobe Illustrator CC 2014. Alright, so first I want to bring up some shapes. So I'm going to grab my rectangle, click and drag, and then just bring in the corners. Over here at the bottom, I got some graphic styles already set up, and there you go. Alright, so now that I got something to play with, I'm going to hit the V key, and if you take a look over there in the Tools panel, you'll see that my selection tool is already activated. Alright, what the selection tool does is it's kind of like my hands. I could click and drag and start moving the object around in my artboard. I know we have the hand tool over here in the tools panel, but that one's actually going to change your view of the artboard, where this is actually moving around the object inside the artboard. Alright, along with that, we also have this bounding box here. Now if you don't see the bounding box, come over here to the view menu, scroll down until you find bounding box, and when you click on it, it's going to bring it up. Because I already had mine activated, I'm actually hiding mine right now. So I'm going to hit Command-Shift-B to bring them back. Now with this bounding box, you could actually grab one of these little corners, click and drag, and that's going to make a scale change for you. And if I hover off the edge like this, you see I get this double arrow that's going to allow me to rotate my object. So I'll undo that. So the selection tool is going to allow you to make modifications to your objects and target different objects. I also like making copies of objects with it. So Option, click and drag, and when you release, you got a new object. Alright, so the way this works again is you have the selection tool activated. You want to click on a shape. Now that I have the shape selected, I'm going to hover over it, hold down the Option key, click and drag, and I'm going to release the mouse first, then the Option key, and then I'm good to go. Alright, with the graphic styles, I'm going to change the color up a little bit. There you go. Alright, so let's see how we can make some different selections. You notice every time I click on one, I deselect one and the other one is activated. When I click on this pink one right over here, you see the green one is now deselected, but the pink one is the one that's targeted. Alright, if I hold down the Shift key, I could add to my selection. And I still get this bounding box that's going to allow me to rotate my objects or make a scale change if needed. Alright, Option, click and drag and release. Now another way to select several objects is by clicking and dragging. That's going to give you this marquee, and any object that falls under this marquee is going to be selected. When I release, you see all three of these guys have now been targeted. Now the only downside to that one is if you have a crowded artboard, you're going to select several shapes at one time. So if you do have a lot of objects going on in here, you're going to want to click on an object and then shift click on the rest. Alright, cool. So now I got these guys laid out. I want to start setting up some groups. Now I'll show you what a group is. I'm going to click and drag on these guys over here, Command G, and then when I deselect, check this out, I'm going to grab one object, but all three of them are now moving. So all three of these guys are now in a group, and I'm going to grab these guys, turn them into a group, and I'm going to shift click on these guys, Command G, and turn that into a group as well. So now I have three different groups. Alright, I could also make a group out of different groups, and that's called nesting, and you're going to hear me say that a couple times. So this is a group, and this is a group. If I shift click on this guy, I have both groups selected. I'm going to hit Command G, and now I have a nested group. So I have two groups to make one. I'm going to shift click over here, Command G, and now I have everybody set up in this nested group. Alright, so if you notice, my selection tool is grabbing the entire group, so everybody's coming along for the ride. Now I'm going to come back over here and grab my direct selection tool, and you're going to see how this guy's a little bit different. Alright, so I'm going to grab this top object, click and drag, move it around, and you see it's actually ignoring the groups. Alright, so we're directly selecting different objects inside of that group. So that's how the direct selection tool works. Alright, I'm going to come over here to this guy. Now, this tool is really powerful because if I zoom in on this shape, you see I could actually click on this anchor point. Now I have this anchor point selected. All the other ones are hollow, and that lets you know that they're being ignored. Over here in the upper left, Illustrator is telling me that I have an anchor point selected. While this anchor point is selected, I could click and drag and reposition it. Alright, let me undo that. I could also click and drag to bring out this marquee. Any anchor points that are under that are going to be selected, and I can make an edit to both of those anchor points at the same time. Let me undo that. I have these two selected, and if I shift click on these anchor points, you see that I'm able to make a change to all four of those anchor points at the same time. Alright, let me undo that. Next, I'm going to click and drag to select this segment right here. Now, while I have the direct selection tool activated, I'm going to hover over this segment, and you see my cursor changes. Now I have the reshape tool. If I click and drag on this guy, I'm moving the segment and the handles are moving along with it. I'll go ahead and release, undo that. I could select this segment right over here, click and drag, and move that segment alone. All right, cool. So the direct selection tool is going to let you get in there and move everything bit by bit. All right, let me get up out of here. All right, next, if you take a look over here where the direct selection tool is, click and hold, and right in the same stack, you're going to find the group selection tool. Now, there's no hotkey for it, but if you're in the direct selection tool, there's a quick way to bring it up. So let me show you that really quick. All right, I have the direct selection tool activated. I'm going to hit the Option key on my keyboard, and now my cursor changed. So this is what the group selection tool looks like, and it's a quick way to bring it up. Once I release the Option key, you see it goes back to the direct selection tool. So let me bring up the group selection tool full time. All right, when I click on it, at first, it looks kind of like the direct selection tool because all I'm doing is targeting this single object. If I come over here and try to grab this anchor point, you notice I'm not targeting that anchor point, but I'm targeting the entire group now. So first what it does is it grabs the object. By clicking on it again, it grabs that group. So if I click on it again, it's going to grab the nested group with it. And if I click on it a third time, it's going to bring up another nested group for me as well. All right, so let me deselect that. I'll do that one more time. I'm going to click, 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 and click. So that was actually 4 clicks. Sorry about that. So that's how we're able to select all the different nested groups at different times. Now, another behavior this guy has is, let me deselect these guys. All right, if I click and drag, any object that's under that marquee is going to get selected. So it's ignoring the anchor points and it's ignoring the group when I'm working in this mode. I'm going to shift click right over here, and I'm able to make a selection of multiple objects that way. So even though everybody's nested and they're in different groups, this group selection tool is going to allow me to play around with different objects or different groups as needed. All right, so let me deselect those guys. So quick rundown again, V is going to bring up the selection tool. That is going to target the object and everybody that makes up that group. It's going to bring up your bounding box so you can make some scale changes or some rotations. If I hit the A key, that's going to bring up the direct selection tool, which will directly target different shapes. It will even directly target anchor points and segments for you. If I hold down the Option key while I'm using the direct selection tool, I'm able to target entire groups at one time. All right, so now that you know what they all do, let's see how these guys work in the real world. I'm going to switch over to a different artboard right over here. So I started off on this guy. I'm not quite done with it yet. So let's play around with them a little bit. I'm going to hit the V key to bring up the selection tool. And I want to move this guy upwards in the artboard. So I'm going to click and drag. And now we've repositioned this entire group. Now it's in the center of my paper, of my artboard, whatever you want to call it. All right, I'm going to click on the artboard to deselect, or you could hit Command-Shift-A. All right, I'm going to hit the A key to grab my direct selection tool because I want to make a change to this circle right in here. I'm going to click and drag this guy downwards, and you see I'm not making a change to anybody else in the group, just that one circle. All right, so now that I have that one down there, I'm going to deselect by hitting Command-Shift-A. Now this circle over here looks kind of weird. So I'm going to click on it to target it, then I'm going to reposition it, and when I deselect, when I let it go, I notice that I need to make a sizing change to it. So remember, you could scale this using the selection tool, and I could bring that guy up really quick by holding down the Command key. All right, so that gives me this bounding box. I could click and drag, bring this guy in. Once it gets to the size that I think looks good, I'll release the mouse first, then the modifier keys, and that's going to bring back the direct selection tool. So that's a cool little workflow tip for you to be able to stay in the direct selection tool, but temporarily access the selection tool. All right, so if I need to reposition this guy, I could use the arrows, but actually it looks pretty good right there. All right, now what I want to do is target this group right over here. So Option is going to change the tool. I'm going to click on this object, and now I've already targeted this group. All right, I can make a quick edit right over here. Maybe I want to move it upwards. And then I'm going to hold down the Option key and click on it again. And now check that out. It's going to bring in this group because this group was nested together with this one. Now I could reposition both of them right over here. Now the direct selection tool can also go in there and grab anchor points and move single anchor points into new locations. While I have this segment over here that's already bent, I could click and drag to reposition this guy. And if I wanted to target this guy right here that's hanging out, I could just click and drag. Now that I have access to it, you see my cursor changes and now I have the reshape tool. So I'm going to click and drag, bring this guy up a little bit, and then release. All right, I'm going to deselect everybody, hit the V key to bring up my selection tool, click on one of the objects, and that's going to bring up the whole group. Now I could come over here to the bounding box, click and drag. That's going to allow me to make a rotation, and then reposition right here to the center of my document. And there you go, folks. That's a brief overview of the selection tools in Adobe Illustrator CC 2014.